This video is intended to be watched after you complete video 2-2G, in which we finish detailing the main level floor plan. At that point, your main level floor plan should look something similar to what you see on the screen. I want to circle back and go back to the foundation plan. Now, I'm operating under a couple of assumptions that you have completed all of the detailing in terms of the call outs for our Simpson hardware for the different pier foundations, the continuous footings and concrete foundation wall types, and well as all of the dimensions and the notes on the interior. So one thing you'll notice, um, likely, just depending on how the settings are, I'm assuming the settings are similar to what I have here, is you'll see things that are all of a sudden appearing in the foundation plan that should not be there. So for example, we come along right here, these are actually the windows that we placed on the main level floor plan. You'll also see the bathroom vanity as well as the cabinetry that exists in the kitchen above. The other thing that follows through here is we'll take note of the building sections as well as the detail section that we completed in the previous video. So those items should not be there. And if they are there, it's a matter of manipulating or changing some of the settings that are within the view. So first off, what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of the cabinetry, the vanity. There's actually the mantle and the fireplace that appears. And to do that, we're going to simply redefine our view range. So from the properties window, you want to scroll down until you get to this option that's called view range. We're going to select edit. So basically in the primary view range, the top is set to unlimited. So that is essentially saying that we're essentially up in the air, higher than that main level, and we're looking down through essentially the floor, or through the main level and down through the cabinetry, and that's what appears. So what we're going to do here, we're going to go ahead and take that top limit, and we're going to set that to the associate level foundation plan. So once we do that, we'll click OK and apply it, and you'll notice that, boom, all of that stuff now disappears. All right, so that cleans up some of the stuff we have here. Now, one of the ways that we can get rid of these building sections, and you may not always want to from view to view to view to get rid of building sections, but in our case, we do. So one of the ways we're going to deal with this is we're going to come over here and we're going to hover, for example, over this section view. And I'm going to right click on the mouse. And once my little drop-down menu or window pops up, I'm going to have a couple different options. And one of those options will be hide in view. Now we just have to wait for it. Okay, so here's our window and we say hide in view. There's another little list here and we want to simply just hide the element. So once we do that, we'll see, once this gets done processing, that view is, that detail section is now gone. If I come back to the main level floor, you'll see that that is actually still there. All right, so I'm going to go back to the plan view, excuse me, to the foundation plan, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm actually going to attempt this. I'm going to hold in the control key down. I'm going to select all three, right click on that last one, hide the element in that view, and all three of those should now disappear. Okay, so now that we've done that, let me go ahead and bring back up our drawing. So you can see this is what we have, and we're not quite all the way there. So the one thing that we learned in the last video is how to put in the detail sections. And you'll note that here in that lower level, or the foundation plan, we have all kinds of different views. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to create those. And the other thing that I wanted to go over in this video to make the final, basically take care of the final issues before, or items before we take these views and load them into a sheet, is we want to note that our foundation plan, the foundation wall, actually shows a architectural foundation symbol. When we go back to our foundation plan, we'll note that that is not there. So if you recall, in one of the earlier videos in the foundation, I showed you how to create a region, and we basically made an overlay with this wood symbol that basically just gave kind of a poché look to that wall. Okay, that could be pretty tedious to do, and I've done that before over the foundation walls, but there is an easier way to do that. Now, I learned a couple really interesting things because I was struggling, because if you recall in the previous video, or 2 videos ago, I taught you how to shade the walls so they stand out. So essentially, that's what we want to do to create that architectural symbol on these foundation walls. So just as a refresher, if you recall, we need to select the wall, because what we need to do is essentially edit this foundation wall type. So we select that wall, and we're going to go to edit type. And in that edit type, we're going to see that it looks like I've already changed this. So I've got a coarse fill pattern set to concrete, and I've got my coarse scale fill color to black. So I went ahead and applied that, said okay, and voila, nothing's there. So I thought it was really interesting, and I tried a little bit of just trial and error. And what I determined is, well, besides the trial and error, I did a little bit of a internet search as well to see what kind of chatter was out there. And there seems to be a little bit of what I would call a flaw in Revit, where in my case, by trial and error, when I shorten this wall, or any wall less than 7 foot 11 and 5/8 of an inch, so even 11 foot or 7 foot 11 1/2 inch, that shading or that architectural symbol did not appear. As soon as I went taller than that, it did. But then after reading about some of the chatter and stuff, it turns out that that's only happening when you have your walls defined as an unconnected height. So what I'm going to show you here really quick is how we're going to cheat this. Remember, I've been showing you and telling you how to create the walls without attaching them to another level. We do that by using an unconnected height and then defining what that wall height is. But it turns out, if I go ahead and I select this wall type, and over here in the properties window, if I, instead of saying unconnected, if I select my foundation plan, now we got to go clear back to the very first video when I set this up. We defined what the elevation height of the foundation plan was, which is the top of the foundation wall, which is the 1 foot 11 and a half inches that I have defined here. So I'm just going to go ahead and select the foundation plan. And now my unconnected height's irrelevant. This wall will actually go all the way up to that elevation. And you'll notice that now all of a sudden I've got that architectural symbol that appears. Now I don't understand why, not necessarily from a programming standpoint, but maybe more from a quality standpoint of a piece of software, why having this defined as unconnected versus an unconnected constraint versus the top constraint being tied to another level would be what would toggle that on and off. being able to view that. And then again, the exception, if you're unconnected, if you're over 7 foot 11.5 inches, boom, it's there. So instead of fighting with it, instead of spending all the time creating the uh, region that I could also define that area like we did on that bearing wall, I'm going to come around here and I'm going to select each of the foundation wall types. And I'm going to come back here and I'm going to select my unconnected height now to my foundation plan. I can go ahead and apply that. And that's now going to appear in there how we want that to. And then finally, I'm going to go ahead and select these last 3 walls, which is our 6-inch walls on the foundation. And I will go ahead and define those. Top level constraint, or the top constraint to the foundation plan. So we get that all done, and now we've got a pretty good, what appears to be the, I did forget one foundation wall right here. I'll just take care of that really quick. So we get that all done, and now it looks like we've got a nice little foundation concrete symbol on top of our wall. And that now actually looks like what we have here. Okay, so let's talk about putting these section views in. And keep in mind, because we put those the 3 building sections and the other wall section or detail section on the floor plan, and then it appeared in the foundation plan, it's probably reasonable to believe that when we put these section views on the foundation plan, that they're going to again appear on our main level floor plan. So we're not going to worry a whole lot about that right now, other than this. What I would like to do, let me bring back our drawing. So I'm going to start with this wall type that's labeled as 4100. So we're going to basically come in here. It's about the midpoint between our 2 pier footings out there to give us a little bit of a reference. So I'm going to come back up here to our view tab. Here is our section. I want to just keep that as a wall section. And before I place this, I'm going to go ahead and create an edit type. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this wall section, I'm going to duplicate it. And I'm going to name it wall section, and then I'm going to put a hyphen wall section, and let's call this foundation plan. Now, I'm going to have you remember this because this becomes very important in another method of how I'm going to show you to get rid of the detail lines when we get to the main level. So I'm going to go ahead and just say okay there. And once I've done that, everything else I'm going to keep just the same for now, unless I want to change those parameters. I'll know that as soon as I put my detail section in here. So I think that first detail section was somewhere right about here. Okay, so now that I have that, you'll notice really quickly that's not quite what I want. That's okay. I'm going to shorten that up a little bit first. I'm going to come down here. Here's my little, it's a little bit down there, my cycle section tail. Get rid of that so we're the straight. And the only thing we're missing now is that little black triangle. So I'm going to go ahead and select this again. I want to go back to edit type. And then what I'm going to do here is, on my section tag, I'm going to select that. And on the section head, let's just go ahead and select section head filled. Go ahead and say okay. And there we go. So now, other than the detail number in the sheet, which cannot appear because we don't have those details defined in terms of an actual detail or a detail on a sheet, that will just appear exactly how that is. Now, the other thing I wanted you to note here is when we select this, This detail is actually a detail number. So you'll see right here that we have section 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And if I actually click into there, okay, I got to back off here a second. So underneath the building section, remember I created a new building section type, which is the foundation plan. So this is going to be section 5. Okay, so once I've done that, I'm going to come back here. What I want to look at is we have this same detail section that appears over there. Okay, so the question I'm going to ask myself here is how I'm going to make this work. When I click on this, I just want to see what my parameters are. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to copy this. And then I'm going to bring this over this direction. And then I'm going to go ahead and rotate this. And that is not the rotate. Okay, I may be doing things that are not allowed here. Maybe let's try the rotate up here. And we'll go down 90 degrees. Okay, let me undo that again. So, okay, so once I've copied that, I'm going to actually highlight, and then under my tools up here, I'm going to rotate this using that tool, 90 degrees. And then once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to place that in that location. And then I do need to flip that. Oops, it's the arrows right here. Perfect. Okay, so how do I look as far as everything here? I'm doing pretty good, I think. So the reason I would copy that is simply, and this is probably not a really good example because we haven't tied this to the other sheet, but basically you have the ability to duplicate so you're going to the same sheet in the same section. So not to get real confusing here because it's very hard to do this without having the illustration. If you have the same details, the same call out that's going to a plan view, then duplicating like that might actually be more advantageous. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and bring this up here, and then I'm going to drag this to my other screen. I think you can see what I'm trying to accomplish here. So once I can get my computer to do what I want, there we go. I'm going to go through and I'm going to start adding the rest of the details that I want to create here. So I'm going to go ahead and select section. Now make sure that it's your wall section for the foundation plan. And then once that's done, I'm going to come down here and it looks like I've got a section view about right here. Okay, now I'm having something that's happening because, oh no, we're good here. By default, that tail's appearing, which it's unfortunate. I'm sure there's a way we can toggle that on and off, but I'm not going to take the time to do that at the moment. So we'll go ahead and we'll put one of those details there. I'm actually just going to copy this one because we basically have the same detail. It's occurring right at that location. Okay, what other detail sections do we have? I'm going to go ahead and create a new one. It looks like it appears somewhere about in this vicinity. Again, we'll get that there and I'll toggle that little tail off, shorten that up to what I want it to look like. Okay, how many more do we need to go here? So again, it's on view. And I'm going to come about this point and bring another tail section that way. I got to flip it and then get rid of that tail. So you can see it just takes a lot of practice, and once you do this a little bit, then you start understanding exactly how these things should kind of flip in there, and you can get things pretty much set to how you want. Okay, I think I'm down to 3 more. So let's just keep working on this for a second. So we'll put another detail, whoops, going from that point to that point there. And as soon as I process there, I'll go ahead and get rid of that and flip. We've got one. Right here at the garage. Did that in the right direction. I just want to be down a little bit and get rid of the tail there. And finally, I have one other one that I want to place up here. Oops, I got to go back to view. There it is. So we're somewhere in about this vicinity right here. We'll come back, get rid of that tail. And then I'm going to pull this a little bit back so I'm not on that grid line. And that's one of the key things whenever you detail. You want to try to avoid having detail sections, different things, overlaying onto like grid lines or dimensions or different things. So sometimes you just have to play around with that. And we'll actually do that in the next video a little bit more when we place the views into the sheet, because sometimes we have to go back and modify some of our dimensions and our grid lines and different things just to be able to get those to appear. Okay, so if I'm looking at this now, I'm just going to do one last quick scan, and as far as I can tell, it looks like I have all those detail sections. So now let's do go back to the main floor plan, and let's see if my theory actually held out. So we come back here to the main level floor plan, and there we go. We have all those detail sections. Okay, so how do we clean that up in the floor plan? What we're going to do here is we're going to filter out the detail section or the sections that are labeled as a family type of foundation plan. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to make sure that we're clicked on the view. And then what we're going to do is we're going to click where it says Visibility Graphic Override. I do recall talking about this briefly in another video, but I will re-explain this really quickly. So we're modeling, and we have all these different elements in here. We have the ability to turn these elements on and off. In previous softwares like AutoCAD and different things like that, we would put things on layers, and then we'd take the layers on and off. If you're familiar with AutoCAD, you can think of it that way. But the reality is we're on a view, and we have the ability to turn things on and off based on that view. So when we're in this dialog box, this is strictly for this view only. It won't turn anything on or off in any other view. So once we get here, we have model categories. So the model categories are those three-dimensional components that we've been using to construct this building. And then we have these annotation categories. And so we've spent the last little bit doing annotations, detailing this drawing out. And so these are going to be the categories we want to look at. So if we scroll down, we're going to be able to come down here and we see one that's called sections. So if I actually click on that section, I'm going to go ahead and uncheck it. I'm going to hit apply. And then what you're going to see over here in the main viewing area is all my sections are going to disappear. The problem with what I just did is not only did it just cause the sections to disappear that I created on the foundation plan, it also did my building sections, the 3 building sections, that detail section that we created that needs to be part of that floor plan. So I'm gonna go ahead and add those back in. I'm gonna hit apply. That will bring everything back on. Okay, so another option that we have in here, we'll skip over the analytical model categories and the imported categories. What we're going to look at is filters. So we can actually create some filters, which is nothing more than we're going to create a rule that will allow us to filter out the sections or the detail sections that we don't want to appear up here on the main level. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and add a rule. And I'm going to come down here where it says section filter. I'm going to go ahead and go edit new. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit new. And I'm going to call this filter I'm going to call this section. Let's go section space foundation plan. That's kind of arbitrary. If you were setting up a template and using this long term, you'd want to make sure that you were doing something that was very cohesive, something that made sense. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to select OK to assign rules. So now what we're going to do is we need to come down here on our filter list, and there should be an option that's called sections. So we're going to go ahead and select that box. And then over here under our filter rule, we're going to simply say section. We're going to go, it has none. I want to come down here and this might take me a second because I haven't played with this a whole lot. I'm just going to go down here with family and family type because I believe that's how I created that view. So once I select that, I should be able to select here and I should have the family type view. It doesn't show up. So bear with me one second. Let's see what happens when we go to family. Nothing there. All right. I'm just going to go through all of these for a second. I'm not actually finding anything here. So I actually want to put an equals there. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of there for a second. So I'm going to start over here really quickly. And tell you what, I'm going to put this video on pause for a minute. And then I'm going to get this figured out, and then we will reconvene. All right, I'm back. So I spent a little bit of time trying to figure this out, did a little bit of research, and my grand method of making these disappear does not look like it's has that capability in Revit right now. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to use that same method that we used on the foundation plan, and we're just going to come in here and we will just select and make sure you're only selecting the detail sections that we want to go away. And again, you want to be very careful that that's all you're getting. The one down here, you want to be so careful. And I might be getting a little bit overzealous here doing so many at a time. I'm just going to go ahead and say hide element in view. And it looks like I got all of them. Put that one right there. Okay, so yeah, I should have tested this, and I usually do test things before I do these videos. If I'm not sure, I just assumed that using that filter, I'd be able to filter out the section views, which apparently Revit currently does not have that capability. But once we get that done, we'll make sure that our main level floor plan looks like this. Our foundation plan should now look like this as soon as it processes. And once you get it to that point where you feel comfortable, then the next step will be for us to, there we go. The next step will be for us to place these two views onto a title block. and then I'll show you how to print those two sheets into a combined PDF, and it'll be that combined PDF that you will turn in for this project.